All right. I'm here with Emo Cowboy, Tyler, one of the newer faces in the fantasy football space in the last few years, the second horniest man in football Twitter. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Nick. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
good to see small new faces, trying to get into the space and you know, cut out their own lane.
Yeah, of course. Like Sam Sherman said on ADP chessing the other day, there's not many places for white men to have a voice in something, allegedly.
It's they keep taking our spaces away every day, and much like a conservationist that I am, I'm very very focused on making sure that we have a safe space to be ourselves as white Americans in 2026, to voice our very important, very applicable opinions on the most important issues like ADP and whether or not rookies are good, good targets in tournaments like Best Ball Mania.
Yeah. I'm gonna get started. I have some stuff I'm gonna share on screen. Some stuff that I've been looking at the last few days. Let me go get this pulled up real quick. So I've been looking at rookie wide receiver ADP from Best Ball Mania 3 to Best Ball Mania 6 the last few days, just to see where if we can, predict where these three guys are going, as well as a few others. And I saw that rookie receivers drafted in the top 15, their average ADP is 72.8. Um, but one thing I did find is in pre-draft best ball, so big board, little board, etc., uh, to BBM, their ADPs actually drop, which is not what I expected to find. I expected them to, mostly go up. A lot of it is weighted to Jameson Williams because his ADP was in the 90s before Best Ball Mania, and then it fell all the way to 166 by the end of it. Um, so the three guys you have on screen right now, they're all projected to go in the top 15. Jordyn, Tyson, Makai Lemon, Carnell, Tate. What are your takes on these guys?
I feel like the draft landscape once again has decided to get roller coaster up and down about a projected top receiver in the class. Last year we saw it with Tate McMillan of I think he's going to fall past 20, and he doesn't. Right, he goes in the top
Mm-hmm.
15. So we kind of see and hear this every year, and yet the NFL has told us receivers are a premium position. They are getting paid more and more every year. And, the NFL is willing to take shots on these types of guys, whether they are speedsters like Matthew Golden last year, whether they're the prototypical sized guy like Tate McMillan last year. And so for these three, these are, we're hearing that potentially 4 or 5 receivers go in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, that tells me that, 3 are going probably top, 15, 16. In a weak class, you go after the premium positions, you go after the blue chip players. And and that just means that some bad teams might get some really solid rookies, or a good team we don't expect trades up to get one of these guys. And we're hearing a lot of trade buzz. So ultimately, it's exciting to have rookies. They have untapped potential, but we also do a pretty poor job sometimes of like really taking into account where they end up, or overreacting to their draft profile. Like Matthew Golden going in the first round last year, had plenty of him, felt like a great target with a great setup with Christian Watson, but his college profile mattered and ultimately, wasn't the best click, in the 7th round, last year's ADP. So, these guys are exciting. But if Carnell Tate goes to the Browns, we're gonna be worried about his prospects to score touchdowns and ultimately earn as much work as we'd like, on a projected bottom 5 offense. Makai Lemon's very fun, but if he's the third weapon in the Rams offense, it kind of feels like when Ricky Pearsall 2 years ago got drafted by the Niners, before the injury stuff, he was like a 10th, 11th round pick because it's like, well, he went in the first round. They wouldn't have taken him if they're not. Well, teams take guys a year ahead. We see that with the Bucks, trying to be a year ahead of Mike Evans and Godwin's contracts. And so, The Bucks taking Egbuka was a surprise to all of us. And before the McMillan and Godwin injuries were muddy, it was like, well, what are we going to do with 4 viable wide receivers in an offense led by Baker Mayfield? So, ultimately, it's going to depend a lot on landing spot, but also, are there injuries we don't know about? What are their year one prospects look like, and their college profile matters a lot. And ultimately, these guys, they go the highest. That might not mean that they're the rookie receiver we need in the draft. There's every once in a while there's a later guy that goes that ends up being the huge benefactor that we just don't take into consideration. So ultimately, it's new shiny toy syndrome. We're probably going to overreact one way or the other, going too high because we're too excited about their prospects, or too low because we're forgetting that talent and opportunity do matter in equal amounts. And over the course of a season, we don't know how that's going to shake out.
Right, I completely agree. Makai Lemon, for instance, he's my favorite receiver of these three, and it's going to look very different for him if he goes to the Chiefs at 9 versus the Rams, the Dolphins, the Jets. Obviously, the biggest domino to fall is if/when the Chiefs take a wide receiver. They have 2 first-round picks with the 9 and the 29. Whoever is being drafted to them is automatically going to see massive increase in their ADP. And those of us who drafted that receiver at the lower price in the big board are going to feel great. But as well, it's a new contest. It's a new players in the board. When I was doing research on this, there's players that are not in the player pool that could be drafted this weekend. So we're going to see a lot of things shift. Do you have a dream landing spot for any of these guys? Like, of course, put any of their names with the Chiefs. That's going to be the dream landing spot for any of them. But outside of the Chiefs, I don't think I would mind Jordyn Tyson going to the Giants. Him and Malik Neighbors in the same offense would be fun. Makai Lemon, if he goes to the Rams, I think that shows that Davante Adams is probably out the door. There's already been rumors of him potentially being shipped out somewhere this offseason. And then Carnell Tate, Commanders would be fun. They need a wide receiver 1. Jaden Daniels is a great quarterback, and Carnell Tate would fill that slot real quick. Do you have a dream landing spot for any of these guys?
Yeah, it really just comes down to trying to avoid the two of the worst offenses. The Browns and the Jets. They're on the Browns. You're not even necessarily the top target, depending on how things shake out with Fannin. It sounds like Watson is primed to start week 1, and the last time we saw him, it was an absolute disaster with trying to get any sort of good volume, good accuracy, good consistency. They were a bottom 5 pass in total offense. So, to me, that's disaster level, just because, the backup is Shedeur. And even then, we're not expecting a lot of pass volume, and it's not Stefanski's quarterback friendly kind of like, focal the tight ends and have some good play action receiver work. So, I think we as a market overreact to the Chiefs and the Bills landing spots. I year after year try to avoid and fade personally the desire to overreact to those landing spots, because while the pass rate is good and while the quarterback is good, Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback hasn't been as good for fantasy as we'd like from a deep accuracy standpoint. Ask all the worthy drafters last year. Tyquan Thornton and he were able to hook up a few times for some nice passes. Same thing with Hollywood, but it's certainly lacking where it's been, several years before. They bring in, a new running back. And lest we forget, Mahomes is returning from an injury. Might not start week 1, might not be his normal self from a mobility standpoint. And, it wouldn't be shocking if the offense became a little bit more focused on what it's become the last few years. Bieniemy coming back, Nagy leaving might be a boost for the offense, but the desire to protect a somewhat mobile, hampered quarterback is, for at least a good chunk of the season, might very well be in the cards. And that's a lower ADOT, that's faster passes, They still have Rice. They still have Kelsey. So it's like I don't know. I expect us to still see more passes than the average NFL offense, but certainly a little bit worried about what the quality of those targets and where they're going ultimately, because there are a lot of mouths to feed and role players going around. So if any of these guys go to the Chiefs, I know it'll feel like a great landing spot from like a dynasty standpoint, a year one standpoint, but I'm not going to forget that not every guy's been able to break out without being the sole dude there. But staying flexible, because we've seen this offense create some really fun things for people. But there are limited opportunities for a new guy coming in if they're not going to move anybody. So ultimately, I share your take with the Giants that Dart chucking it deep seems really fun. I have a little bit of worry and hesitancy with we got some early coach speak that Harbs and this new coaching staff are potentially going to be a more run focused unit. They trade away Dexter Lawrence, but now they've got 2 picks to play with. Harbs has kind of been trying to play like a defense minded, control the football type of thing. The organization tried to protect Dart last year from himself in a way. So you got to be a little bit concerned about maybe what the total volume of the offense is going to be. I do think Neighbors starts slow or potentially on the pup given the timeline of his injury. So that allows Tyson or anybody else to potentially come in and kind of get acquainted early and be the favorite target in camp at least. But Dart, looked decently promising in some respects, but not the most polished or accurate passer down to down. So, and they lose Dayball when they bring in Matt Nagy. So again, I have a little bit of nitpicks with a lot of these landing spots. I think the cleanest landing spot by far is the Commanders. I'm encouraged by the OC they bring in, emphasizing motion, emphasizing, fluidity and versatility in this offense, not static like what Cliff Kingsbury has, brought to his previous offenses. We know Daniels has a very high passer ceiling, and ultimately, outside of Terry McLaurin, there is no clear dominant target earner on this offense. Chig is an interesting piece, but literally, so I think the Commanders easily feel like a spot primed. They don't have a young receiver in the room right now to build around going into 2027 and 2028 during Daniel's rookie contract. So to me, this feels like a really nice fit if one of their preferred guys in Tyson or Tate are there. I'm not sure that they are without trading up with how it stands, but theoretically, I feel like the Commanders are a dream landing spot from an opportunity standpoint and from an optimism standpoint for like what they could see year one. I think if anybody goes to the Rams, I don't see a world where they trade away Adams without getting another weapon in return. It seemed like Adams was involved in the AJ Brown trade discussion. So, and for good reason, right? Puka was in some legal trouble. He's also not been the healthiest, most, consistent, reliable guy from a physical standpoint to count on. And Adams himself is up there in age, easy contract to move off of next year. But this is their Super Bowl window with an aging quarterback who did just have a really good season. But it makes no sense if they trade a guy to let a guy go in a Super Bowl window. It seems like depth and quality depth is something they're after. So it would be a lot of mouths to feed, right? I think this would, if one of these three or, a Casey Concepcion or a Omar Cooper type of guy goes in the first round, if say they trade back, because I feel like the Rams are a sharp organization. They rarely have a first round pick. They're not afraid to kind of move around the board. I think a receiver going to the Rams would feel a lot like the Tampa Bay Bucks, where as it stands on paper, a lot of mouths to feed. What's it going to look like going into week one? And then not knowing how it's going to shake out during the finals. But certainly an offense, I think much more than the Chiefs, I'd be excited about, because we know that the passing touchdown and Super Bowl window focus will be so high from this is, every year with Stafford is potentially the last hurrah.
Right. And I hate to do this to you, but we knew Rick would be making an appearance. He'd be coming front row. He does have a great question to bring up at least. Where do we think Rashee goes if one of these guys goes to the Chiefs? I do think Lemon would hurt Rice the most, but I don't think any of these three would be an immediate impactor to Rice in their first year. This is a great dynasty question, I think. I think it would hurt Xavier Worthy more than anything. I don't. Rashee Rice goes in the second round. Now, I think at most mid third, I think is the furthest I think he would fall.
I don't even think he falls that far right. I think you're right that it basically sends Worthy to 0. And probably an overreaction, much like QJ, right? You know, it's one of those things where I think any sort of bump down, like Rice has been such a dominant target earner. Ultimately, this receiver will be coming in to fill the vacancy left by Hollywood, and potentially in a less gadgety or volatile perimeter role that Worthy fills. I'm not sure that the Chiefs drafted it. We're hearing that they're looking to trade up, and their needs are clearly in the trenches: defensive line, offensive line, from a youth perspective and a depth and quality perspective. Offensive line, especially, to me, I think either they're looking for one of the top 3 edge or pass rushing guys, which makes a ton of sense given Chris Jones is basically the only guy at going in his age 33, 34 season. Spags defense is one that they've not been afraid to draft defense in the first round the last few years. And at this point, we're hearing all that. So I'm not too worried about a receiver coming in. And if it is, again, we haven't seen a whole lot of Worthy that hasn't looked kind of like, a rich man's Mecole Hardman. I know the shoulder injury hurt him a little bit, but even as like the clear cut guy with no Rice and no Hollywood and a dusty looking Kelsey 2 years ago, outside of the Super Bowl run, it was a lot of like that, Rice, but not as good, manufactured design target stuff, just really benefiting from a really good offense. So ultimately, this offense feels like it's going to prioritize Kelsey, it's going to prioritize Rice, and ultimately, what else is left there? If anything, I could see Kelsey and Worthy both declining as, those guys look like, Kelsey's not been as dominant of a target earner. He's not got as much juice. Really, him staying around is like, hey, make sure we still have a big weapon that Mahomes trusts in the middle of the field in the red zone and critical downs. But ultimately, if we're building for like the next step and the next phase and the next era of this offense with Mahomes, what's after Worthy and Kelsey? So Rice feels like someone that's very primed to still maintain his role. This is a guy that saw above 30% target share in his healthy stretches of the offense. And again, it's an easy button in this offense. It's a lot of like manufactured yak and explosive play, a lot of quick design targets, and I don't see any reason that they go away from that with Mahomes coming off an injury like that. So if he moved to the mid third, I'd be I think it'd be a slight overreaction about the rookie coming in. And I'm already a buyer of Rice in the second round, so I'd be willing to buy on that. I think Rice doesn't move as much as, again, from a projectable standpoint, this rookie's not likely to take away when we go and you do, like when Leone does his projections, Rice coming down from like a 33 or 30% target share is still going to be like worth a second round pick in Puka level-esque target share earning potential and with his profile. So it's really just the other guys kind of coming down a bit. Probably hurts a little bit of the Walker target ceiling, which might feel a little, back-to-back years of probably overhyping the Walker receiving ceiling. But at minimum, it's going to be an exciting first round because we hear there's going to be a lot of movement and a lot of teams have a lot of needs. And I think some players will be dealt more so than picks. And so that's where it's going to be interesting, is there might be some spots that open up that we don't know it yet now because guys get dealt during the draft. And, we saw that with the AJ Brown to the Eagles trade a few years ago, and certainly seems like, something like that is on the table again this year.
I agree. And I was so excited to talk with you tonight, mostly because I've been a big proponent of Jeremiah Love to the Bengals, and I was going to make an Ohio is for lovers joke for you. The emo music, Hawthorne Heights, had to make the joke, but obviously that's dead in the water now. Let me go to the next slide that I have here. The 3 other guys that are projected to go in the first round: Omar Cooper, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston. overall, rookie receivers in BBM, their average ADP is 81.3. These three guys, for guys who are projected to go in the first, their ADP is also pretty far behind where they are pre-draft. Usually pre-draft rookie wide receivers that are projected in the first round are in the 90s, early 100s. The only one that's close to that is Casey Concepcion, and it's because I think so many of us are already putting Casey Concepcion Buffalo Bill. I do think if the Bills take any of these three guys, their ADP is going to skyrocket. Do you have any, first off thoughts on?
No, draft capital is going to make any of these guys rise unless it's like a just a really awful landing spot. Again, the one kind of recent example is Ricky Pearsall. He gets first round draft capital, so he does rise from where he was going in pre-draft because the smoke around him, he was rising, but he never rose as much as he did. But he goes to a place where their receivers are going like third, fourth, their tight end was going in the fifth or sixth. CMC first round pick. So, the market said we can only get him as high as like the 11th round before the hamstring injury, before the shoulder injury, making him miss a lot of time. And he still settled in like the 13th round. And ironically, we see Garrett Wilson, goes to the Jets and his ADP is like in the 12th round. So I'd say you buy the rise to an extent. Draft capital does not make you a talented player. I can think of Quentin Johnston as a guy. He goes to the Chargers. That's a fun landing spot from a quarterback and an offense perspective. But you got Big Mike, you got Keenan Allen, and you've also got a guy with a very questionable college profile that needs to be used in a very specific way, kind of like a power slot yak guy. He doesn't get utilized that a lot year one with Big Mike and Keenan both having injuries, and the offense kind of just using him as like a real receiver on the perimeter. And he ends up being, a total bust of a 7th round pick. Who gets another reroll of a new offense. So, I think I'm going to be excited about whoever the Eagles end up taking in the first round because it sounds like A.J. Brown is all but gone. And so this guy is going to potentially be able to come in and fill the void that A.J. Brown leaves if these guys get taken. Again, I don't know that I buy the Bills being able to spend at receiver. I think the receiver pick is almost certainly all the draft capital and money they allocated to DJ Moore a couple months ago, right before free agency starts up. Denzel Boston's not a guy I'm super interested in from a prospect profile standpoint, but certainly feels like the Jets and the Dolphins and the Browns take some shots at, whoever's left. I don't know that we're going to have a run of these guys. I won't be surprised if, only 5 receivers go in the first round and the rest of the guys kind of go high second round, kind of like Lad McConkey 2 years ago. Just because teams will get really desperate at the trenches, with edge and offensive line. And then they'll talk themselves into if one of the top, safeties or corners falls. And then there's always is someone going to trade up for, getting the late quarterback. I'm not a super believer in Ty Simpson going, but that's all live on the table. But if these guys, if we see 6 receivers go in the first round, landing spot's going to dictate how high or not high they rise. But we should expect all these guys to rise in ADP. Denzel Boston, great example of what you just said. He started out basically as like a 7th, 8th round ADP type of guy who slowly fell as we got some kind of like fun about how high in the draft he would go. Casey Concepcion has been rising steadily since, starting out in like the 140s, 150s on Underdog. And Omar Cooper was basically free and has now, skyrocketed through several different tournaments on Underdog and on DraftKings as like hey, this guy sounds like he's going first round. And his ADP is still too cheap as it is now. And I won't be surprised when he at least cracks, like you said, the top 100 for a bunch of these guys, unless they go to a spot where, they're the second rookie drafted to a bad offense, or they're drafted to a very stacked offense and now becomes, is this a year one play? Or is this more of this is next year's team building, and this was just the guy that they had, a la Egbuka?
I completely agree. So when you're talking about potentially 5 of these 6 guys going in the first round, in my mind, the one that would automatically be cut would be Denzel Boston. And it's
Yeah.
interesting you brought up Ty Simpson just because I was looking on DraftKings today at some of the betting odds. It's minus money right now to go over on 1.5 quarterbacks in the first round, and it's plus money to go under that. So DraftKings is saying it's likely that Ty Simpson goes in the first round. Um, Obviously, most people don't think he deserves that first round slot. The 5th year option is important for the team that does draft him, especially if he does happen to be a serviceable quarterback for another team. Do you have a favorite of these 3 guys?
I think Casey feels the most fun in like sheer ability. Based on what we've seen, I think the least amount of, concerning flags. And he certainly seems to kind of fit into like the modern offense and what they do. So, I mean, he kind of sticks out as a favorite of mine. I'd be a little concerned about where he fits in the pecking order on a team like the Bills, who, kind of have a bunch of guys a little bit similar to this. I know we don't like Keon Coleman, but Keon certainly seems like he's going to get his fair shake to earn a roster spot with, Joe Brady becoming the head coach. So, going to a jam-packed offense where they've got a lot of mouths to feed, just be how they operate as a spread offense kind of way. Cooper's probably the one where, we as a draft industry are a little confused why he might be going round 1, given where he, first started out in mock draft consensus and ADP. So yeah, I certainly think Denzel's probably on the bubble as a guy that feels kind of like a, early to mid second round type of limited, he's big, he's fast, but what is he really type of Keon Coleman esque in a way. How legit is the offense, etc. But yeah, Casey certainly stands out as one of my favorites.
I would agree. Uh, at face value, looking at this, I think if any of these 3 go to the Jets, I think they stay relatively the same, maybe drop 5 or 10%. Dolphins, I think they rise a little bit.
I think they rise a lot with the Dolphins just because there's no one there, right? The market loves clear certainty. So these guys getting a landing spot, A, and then B, you might not have the most excitement, but like I can already see the excitement tweets about like Malik Willis was absolutely feeding Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Matthew Golden late. He chucks the ball and there's no one else to compete for targets. There's no one else. It's him. Literally, it's Tutu, it's Tolbert, it's Malik Washington. These guys are jokes. They're not legit threats of any sort of work. We're not excited about the Dolphins, but the market loves clear-cut wide receiver ones. And whoever ends up on the Dolphins is likely going to get just so much, ETR projections. Well, and it's a bad offense, but we're projecting him for upwards of 25 to 30% of the targets because he's the main guy there, right? Like it's really clear-cut to be able to be. That's one of the things that has, a guy like Garrett Wilson strapped to the 3-4 turn year after year is, well, it's a bad offense, but 140 targets, 130 targets, it's hard to say no to that, even if it's a bad offense. So from an ADP perspective, I certainly expect anyone that goes to the Dolphins to be able to exponentially rise because we can double and triple count as an industry the opportunity and the volume.
See, I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that or not because you brought up Garrett Wilson. I was thinking about him. His rookie season, his ADP was 127, and he was a much better prospect than these 3 guys. And arguably, I think the Dolphins' offense is worse than that Jets' offense was. What, 4 years ago? BBM3 or BBM3. So I don't know if I'm sold on the clear rise, especially with the perceived perception that this rookie class is one of the weaker ones that we've had in recent history, that they're going to skyrocket. I think Casey Concepcion could maybe fall a round or 2 if he's in the Dolphins, and I could see Cooper and Boston maybe rising maybe 1 round. But I'm not entirely sure I agree with the skyrocket point of it.
One of the things that's changed is, everyone agreed that the Garrett Wilson price made no sense and wasn't very good.
No, yeah, in hindsight, yes, I agree.
Well, no, and so as an industry, on every platform, the rookies are going higher and higher than they ever have. I mean, Underdog ADP literally opened with the top 3, Tate, Tyson, and like those guys were in the mid 50s, and they've been slowly I've been slowly falling to like the late 50s, mid 60s, with Tyson falling even the most. So, and you've got a guy like Tate, who he was his ADP last year was pretty aggressive for coming in and being with a quarterback we were all certain was absolute dog shit. So it's just like I'm talking strictly for Underdog. The market on Underdog loves rookies and it loves wide receivers. And it's going to be priced so much, and when you got the projections ranks guys, it's just going to be really easy to double count those things as a market at some point. I'm not saying opening day, but certainly a month into BBM, I will not be surprised if whoever the Dolphins grab round one is just aggressively priced, unless they take, 2-3 guys in the top 50, and then there's ambiguity, and they'll all be somewhat relatively expensive, but priced around each other, and then it's our decision to make happen, or it's or again, the only other way I see that not happening is we still have a couple of viable free agents who are pretty good target earners and still look pretty talented in an offense like this, in Stefon Diggs, Jauan, Jennings, and Keenan Allen. So certainly if and I expect the Dolphins to fill out this wide receiver room with more than just what they have right now. And so certainly the ADP could be aggressive before they add maybe a veteran presence going into camp. That's my disclaimer. But if it's mostly rookie packed, it feels like we're not getting discounts on guys anymore unless they're hurt, at least on Underdog.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if I agree or not, but I 100% see your point. As far as free agent receivers going to the Dolphins, I'm not sure I see any of them outside of Jennings going. I think the others at this point, Deebo, Diggs, and Keenan Allen, they would be ring chasing, trying to find a depth spot somewhere else. I know they're all good enough to still be a wide receiver too on the team, but I'm not sure they would go to the Dolphins unless the Dolphins are offering a stupid amount of money that no one else is giving them.
I mean, when it comes to incentives and it comes to opportunity, it financially doesn't make any sense for a receiver that can play to not play.
No, I get it.
If the Dolphins are the only team offering, right? I'm not saying it's likely, but I do think one of these veterans ends up there if they only end up taking like 2 receivers in this class. Because going into this season with your depth at wide receiver, 2, 3, 4 being a guy that hasn't played, much ball in a year, and another guy who's a limited role player is just not fantastic.
Yeah. I have one more quick slide on wide receiver 2s, and then we're going to hop into a draft. We can be pretty quick with this one. These 4 guys, they're all going in the 200s. In the past, receivers that have been projected to go in round 2 have been in the 150s and 160s in big board pre-draft contests, and they pop up to usually about 15% higher than where they're being drafted. I find it strange that these 4 are going in the 200s when that's what we've been seeing in the past with everything we've seen.
Yeah, and the one I really am not going to have much interest in year one is Chris Bell. His injury and the timing of it happening when it did certainly seems like timetable not likely to be able to participate in practice of in camp or OTAs early. Earliest to return to play seems like it'd be sometime mid-season, kind of like the Jameson Williams thing, but I'm a lot more skeptical of his draft capital, giving him a spot, to certainly have. And JMO famously was a terrible rookie pick because, Rotoviz has done some awesome work on historically skill position players missing a ton of camp. Typically don't pan out for their career, much less year one. JMO is an exception to that. I think, again, that's because they traded up for him. They had a plan that, his rookie year would be recovering. And so for Chris Bell, I know he's got this enticing, profile pre-injury, but for year one, I'm not really interested. Chris Brazzell, I have that, Tennessee fake offense skepticism. Jeremy Bernard is every film, grinder's favorite. So I'm willing to, follow that. If he ends up somewhere interesting or he's priced cheap enough where it really doesn't matter. And Zachariah Branch feels like the worst version of Tony and Malachi Corley.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for him to go somewhere that people can convince themselves he's going to be a smash. I'd love him to end up with a good quarterback like Mahomes or Josh Allen, so I can completely ignore his aggressive ADP just because of who his quarterback is. But yeah, not a whole lot of these dudes interest me. Again, Germie, kind of the lone exception to that, simply because of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and looks like the market agrees with you with all their ADPs being in the 200. I'm gonna go ahead and get us in a draft real quick. I've maxed out the little board, so we will be doing a UDFA 3. I'm sure you have no issues.
Not at all. Let's draft a fun team. It's DraftKings vibes here on Underdog with these sub $5 tournaments. Just full madness. ADP's fake. People doing whatever they want to do.
Yep.
Fun little bit of chaos before it becomes real tight in BBM.
Yeah. All right. We have 11 spots. I will not do what I did last time by tagging the Discord.
Is that you tagged because you were on stream? Jesus, Nick.
Hey man, it's first time.
Of all the contests to fear taking a minute to fill, it's adorable. We've sat on stream for 30 minutes waiting for a bigger board to fill.
I know, but brand new to this, dead air still scares me. So you have to embrace it sometimes.
Pro tip is to jump in while you're talking and let it fill in the background while you're vamping, and just keep an eye on it. And when it fills and you've got 60 seconds for it to start or whatever, then you can just switch it over once you feel like you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I should have done earlier, but you know what? We live and we learn. All right, we are full. Let's see where we're at. I didn't want to bring up so you think you can tout too much, just because that's not going to be like my brand forever. I'm doing this, but do you have any tips for anybody that's trying out if they make it on?
Tips. Yeah, I mean, like, first and foremost, as Pete alluded to very clearly, it's an entertainment, competition.
Right.
I don't know if anybody watches TV to get NPR. They don't. It is following so you think you can dance, so you think you can sing. So, ultimately it's about having personality, be entertaining, and for a couple of submissions I've seen so far, be authentic. It's very obvious when you're not authentically yourself, and you're playing a character. You can play up yourself, play up part of your character, but there needs to be a little bit of entertainment and authenticity so that you can own it, and so it comes through. The viewers certainly pick up on that, and from what I understand, it's going to be a weighted competition of judges and voting from the peanut gallery. So ultimately, try to do what you do well. If you do what everybody else does, it doesn't get you very far. So find where you're strong, find where you're unique, find where you are you have your own lane, and operate in that lane as much as you can, as well as you can.
I feel that. So your two co-hosts on Toxic Tower have auditioned. Will you be joining them or no?
Yeah, I have a grand entrance plan, but I've been extremely busy and I'm extremely ADHD, so the procrastinating has hit. So we'll see if I get to do my full grandiose idea, or if I have to kind of trim the fat and just get something out. And a couple of truth serums have already been taken, so I've got I've got what I can do. The more time I take, it is what it is. But yeah, I'll be throwing my hat in the ring simply because I know I can. I'm not new to this, and I do it well, so it'll be fun.
I agree.
I'm looking forward to it.
I do love that. What was it, like 45 seconds after I posted mine, you DM'd me saying I stole your truth serum?
Yeah, I really wanted to yell in the face of the pissers that I love and know so well. Wow, JT and McCaffrey falling really far. We're up here. Who are we looking at on the board?
So by ADP, we have Genty, Achane, Barkley, Kenneth Walker.
I think Genty here is a fine enough click. Do you like doing double RB, or do you prefer grabbing a receiver in this range?
Honestly, I'm a pisser tried and true, even though my truth serum was 0 RB is dead. I think we can start with a double anchor here. I'm fine with De'Von Achane.
Okay. If you want to do Achane, that's fine. We can do that.
Okay. I'm a pisser, but, sometimes you have to take what the ADP gives us.
Are you saying you're an ADP slappy?
Sometimes I am.
Because I'm not loving the Achane price this time. Now that he's basically locked into the Dolphins.
No, I mean, it's gonna be tough. I mean, if he's there at 13, I'm probably gonna take him. If he falls, I'm gonna take him. I mean, he's a great player. Yes, his offense sucks, but he's going to be the entire offense. To real quick recap the first round, we have Bijan, Gibbs, Chase, Puka, JSN, Lamb, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, Taylor, Cook, McCaffrey, Genty. Seems par for the course. What do you so you don't like Achane's price, but if a rookie receiver goes there, you still think they're gonna I don't want to say a rocket ship to their back, but you still think they're gonna rise? Do you think Achane, where do you think he belongs? In like the 19 to 22 range?
Yeah, he probably belongs at the 2-3 turn, just given that like his target ceiling is a little bit hurt with McDaniels and Tua leaving. I don't know that we can say Malik Willis is bad for running backs. Kyler is a mobile quarterback that is good for running backs. So I'm not going to say it's super aggressively bad, but I think we can expect a huge hit to pass volume and efficiency versus some of the ceilings that we have seen in the last couple of years that Achane's been involved in. And, if they're not as efficient scoring or passing as much, then, a big part of his appeal is a guy that can earn, nearly as many targets in a season as CMC. I think that target ceiling is a little hurt. He's still an explosive guy. I think that, if Malik Willis in this offense are at least efficient running the football, he can still be like very explosive, but then he's kind of like, expensive Kenneth Walker on a worse team, maybe a little bit more target earning potential, but how much different of a Kenneth Walker type is he versus, a guy like, Saquon or whatever on a much better team. And then you have to wonder, is the new coaching staff going to split Achane's workload being a smaller guy, or is he going to get a lot of this work? We have that question kind of with Genty. And I think we should have that same question with Achane because, again, new staffs.
Yeah, I mean, I completely see it. I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel about the Dolphins if they were to take another back in the draft. Jalen Wright has shown he's not the best running back, and who else is even on the team at this point? But we are getting ready to pick. So top by ADP, Breece Hall, he'd be a value. Tate would also be a little bit of a tiny value. Garrett Wilson, Ibuka, Devonta Smith, Javonte Williams. I think for sure we grab one of these receivers here, and then we can potentially maybe think about Javonte or another receiver, but I'm also down receiver.
Well, I don't love Ted McMillan, so I guess we can put Garrett Wilson in the queue just for target potential. I wanted Smith a lot. Who is your preferred? I kind of lean maybe like Luther Burden for like the pure breakout potential. Otherwise, maybe going Zay Flowers for the the median ceiling and floor, unless you have a preferred other receiver. Like here.
I don't have a preferred receiver. I've been taking Bucky here a lot, but we go Luther. I don't have much burden in my portfolio as of now. So what is your pre-draft best ball menu looking like? How many drafts do you have under your belt?
A lot. Been drafting since they opened up.
Yeah.
Let's see where we are.
This is my 99th draft. I'm gonna do number 100 after this, and I'm gonna stop right there. Keep it at 100 in the pre-draft, and go hard over the summer.
Yeah, I'm about double that, but 2 channels, been streaming since they dropped.
Yeah.
You said you've been taking Bucky in the 3rd round. I think he needs to be at the 4-5 turn. So I'm curious.
I've been taking him in the early
spooked?
4th. Early
I'm sorry,
fourth is what I've been taking.
fourth.
No, I respect Kenneth Gainwell, and this might be a bias as an Eagles fan, but watching what he did the few years he was there, yes, he was a serviceable back, but like I don't think he was good enough to take over Bucky. I think Bucky is a better running back than Jalen Warren, and I think it's going to be tougher for him. Bucky has 1 and 2 down secured. I think he also has goal line. He's going to be fighting with Sean Tucker for that, but I still think he can, give it his own. Kenneth Gainwell is just going to take him out on 3rd down, which I don't think is truly the biggest issue in the world for a 4th round running back.
Well, I mean, I'm just a little worried about a guy that might be getting squeezed in 2 directions for high value targets. Kenny Gainwell was a pretty competent runner. He was given a pretty fat contract. We've gotten some reporting that Tucker's probably the 3 plus special teams. So there's potential that Bucky gets the goal line work, but they certainly relegated him in that regard. I know there was injuries and mental health stuff last year, but I think from a risk standpoint, 3rd round felt aggressive. Just counting on he'd be the main guy with White gone, and then they replaced White with a better receiver and a better rusher based on what we saw last year. And Tucker, was fairly explosive in a breakaway ability that, Bucky hasn't quite been from a speed perspective. So I think when you just compare him to guys like, for instance, Javonte Williams from a total workload standpoint, and there's some question marks. I know there was some health stuff that impacted Baker and this offensive line, but ultimately you got to feel a little concerned, and ADP is not quite that Bucky, was not the highest draft capital guy, wasn't the best RAS type of guy, and he's not done what Kyron has done, which is earn a shitload of volume no matter what and be effective doing it. He's kind of struggled through some injuries. He's kind of ceded some volume early in his career, and I think that it becomes more dicey for a guy of his profile historically. And so I think given all that risk, he probably should be going behind guys like Montgomery, for instance. And I'm a little worried that, we're as a market, we're kind of just saying we're not waiving it. But we're here on the clock. I see you click the quarterback tab. Do you want to take a quarterback and talk about the next pick?
No, I was just seeing. I don't take a lot of Caleb Williams since we have Luther. I was seeing what his ADP was. I was really hoping we get Carnell Tate. Okay, we can reach on a little bit. That's fine with me. Because if Luther's doing well, Caleb has to be doing well. We could add DeAndre Swift and just get the double stack ready.
Yeah, let's do that.
Out on Brian Thomas. You sure?
Yeah, I like Swift at ADP.
Sure.
The little Bears thing.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, for the other guys that were there, I'm not really, I'm not sold on Brian Thomas. I would have taken Jaden Daniels for sure. Joe Burrow, I'm really only taking if I have Chase or T. I would have taken Lemon, but those were the only ones I think I would have really considered right there.
You really are an ADP slappy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really.
You called Caleb's a reach. We're on the turn, buddy. Anything within 10 picks is not a reach when you're on the turn.
I know. I'm also a sidekick slappy, which I'm not going to use on stream. I'm going to use that in my personal drafts.
I'm willing to fight toe to toe with you and the sidekick. I fight with my co-host on a weekly basis. You don't scare me.
I know I don't scare you. But yeah, I try my best to stick to ADP. I don't want to reach too much, especially in the early rounds. I try to stay on ADP. Later we get in the draft, I'm fine reaching a little bit. Once we get the rounds like 15 through 20, 14 through 20, I'm cool reaching even a round or two.
Yeah, I'd say after the 11th round, ADP in these early drafts is pretty fake.
I'm assuming half PPR Tyler is not your co-host.
That's correct.
No.
It would be really weird if he had another account that wasn't linked to his YouTube account, but a lot of people struggle to make that connection. We have a lot of fanboy accounts and we love them dearly. I think building out a Bears thing is fun and makes a lot of sense. I don't love Kyle Monangai's price. I think Swift's price is pretty solid. But yeah, I think Bucky Irving has a lot of the same kind of risk systemically as a Scatterbo and Judkins if we're not talking about injury. And so from that standpoint, obviously the ceiling is slightly higher systemically for the Bucks than say the Giants and the Browns right now, but I think he's priced too aggressively for the risk that he cedes a good amount of work. If he splits anywhere near 60-40 with Kenny Gainwell, that's a bad price unless he is just crushing, with 15 touches a game. And he's not splitting on the goal line. But we saw Kenny force a pretty big split with Jaylen Warren. I'd say to this point, Jaylen Warren's been a far better running back in every measurable way, and is bigger than Bucky. And they're in similar situations from guy not schlubs being brought in with not schlub money. So I think we need to be a little bit more cognizant of that. And I think one of the biggest things we can do from an edge perspective is kind of fading the stud name value that's kept guys like Tyreek Hill or otherwise higher in ADP because, well, yeah, you can't so and so name, and I think fading that is a good thing when it feels justified from like a price standpoint. So on receivers are Wilson and Burden. Do you want to grab Addison or Ricky? Which one do you like?
I was going to say Addison and then go try to get Kyler in the second wraparound. Stack with him.
Yep. I like Ricky. I'm in on Ricky if we want to do some San Francisco building out.
Yeah, why not?
I think it's viable.
So I think we built out the wide receiver room. I think we have 4 strong wide receivers here with a good running back room. I don't want to say punting tight end, but it seems like we'll be taking 3 later guys for sure, or mid-round guys. Sometimes I can get Kyler at 108, 109 still. So if I can take Addison here, I can try to get Kyler in the wraparound. I think Kyler and Caleb Williams would be a good quarterback room.
Yeah, we'll see. Dak Prescott goes really early. Burrow doesn't fall. Hurts goes early. Drake May goes around ADP. Herbert and T-Law fall, though. So, yeah, certainly kind of hard to know how the quarterbacks are going to fall in this draft room specifically. But a couple teams with no quarterbacks yet, I'm sure they'll 3 with no quarterbacks. I'm sure they'll feel a little dicey. But if we can clear Kyler past the teams with 2, certainly like our chances.
Yeah. And I mean the Jefferson drafters at 7. If we clear him, I think we it's pretty safe for sure. We're not getting Purdy back for Ricky Pearsall, which is fine. Who are your highest drafted guys right now?
My highest exposed guys? That is a great question. I'd have to pull it up. I know who the top projected guy is, and no one likes it, but no one ever likes my top projected guy in pre-draft.
Who is it?
Keenan Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, my top 3 are Keenan Allen, Tyler Shuck, Cade Otton. And the 5 rounding out is Jeremy Bernard and Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, are you with your co-host on the Germie Bernard? Because I think he said that he's at 40% Germie Bernard.
Yeah, so Tyler is a Jeremy Bernard slappy, and part of my exposure is simply because we've drafted a ton of teams that he has told me to draft him or vetoed, and that's just how that works. Um, but yeah, no, I mean it's a rookie who's cheap. I was drafting a lot of Surratt and Cooper late, so it's an easy thing to get on board with. I certainly don't, I don't have 24% certainty, but I do just have no problem, clicking guys that are rookies that might go, in the second round and super cheap prices and hoping for the best. But I do think there's some undervalued veterans late, and everybody keeps acting like Keenan Allen. I mean, Keenan Allen seems like once again he's primed to smash his late round ADP because people just assume he's toast, he's washed, he's not playing, and he took a step back, but he still played pretty well.
So we're on the back end of a quarterback run with Herbert, Lawrence, Mahomes, Purdy, and others all going. Right now, we're sitting with Wandale, Jadarian Price, Baker, KC. We both talked a lot about KC Concepcion earlier. I'm just going to put him in the queue.
Sounds good.
Add a rookie to our team. At this point, I'm thinking either adding Wandale or Downs to try to build out some Cam Ward or Daniel Jones stuff for later. What are you thinking?
Cue up Tyler Shuck for me. I'm going to make you reach on another quarterback.
That's fine. All right.
Yeah, I don't want to get boxed out at quarterback. Tyler Shuck
Right.
is mobile. It's an ascending offense. We can backstack him with at least Jauan Johnson and potentially a rookie. We might have just done that with Casey Concepcion in the first round. Kellen Moore is a Shanahan style of quarterback whisperer where his offenses are going to be really good for fantasy. It's a lot of pass volume, it's a lot of high pace, and when it's above average or even average, it's very good for fantasy. We saw that last year with Rattler and with Shuck. They kind of looked similarly fine, good, and bad in their own respects. So Shuck was able to, do the damn thing with point, click, shoot. He had some pretty good games. Showed out decently as a rookie, plenty of rushing work, but Kellen Moore, with every offense we've seen him be able to, operate, has been a very good offense for fantasy football. And so I want quarterbacks attached to offenses where the easy button for fantasy and real life football is occurring. And right now, with what they're building with upgrading the running back, whatever you think about ETN, he's a benefit and an upgrade on what Kamara was able to show last year, and even some of the other chuds in that room. And so from what we're backstacking with, I like Shuck in a tier slightly above Mayfield, because I think the risk with Mayfield is that he just plays through injuries that he shouldn't be playing through, whether it's lower body or upper body, and that impacts the quality of the offense. And he puts his body on the line. I love Baker. I have his jersey, but he can tend to drag offenses down by not just like sitting out and getting healthy, whether it's a throwing shoulder or an oblique or a hammy or whatever. And so part of my concern with his price is that we've seen some volatility even before he was injured, and even with an offensive line missing some starters, he's been a little inaccurate and erratic throwing deep. And so I'm a little bit worried about just like, unless I've invested in a passing piece of his early on, I think one viable thing we could have done had we not invested so heavily at running back was do Baker Gainwell for some passing correlation, and then target, a McMillan and Otton later in the draft. But, since we're going rookie receiver, I think we go a team that could easily take a receiver in the first round in the Saints. We would like that for that rookie's outcome. And I think Shuck is, as he's my second highest exposed player, I think he's poorly priced. He feels like, an arbitrage on the Bo Nix. Doesn't matter how good he is in real life. It's a lot of passing and rushing volume for him specifically that ends up being kind of like a cheat code.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. That was my first Tyler Shuck pick of the offseason. As well, our friend Bindles is in the chat as he's saying, smash that sub button, smash that like button. There's 10 people watching. Let's add 10 subscribers to my channel as well. I saw this on Twitter, but why is he asking this? We can talk about it after our pick. What are you thinking here? I think we're fine at running back right now. I'm fine with a tight end or a receiver right here.
Cooper's fun. We're potentially getting 2 first-round receivers. We can either go McMillan to catch up a receiver, or we add one of these tight ends. Goddard feels like potentially the play for the Eagles. Kincaid continues to fall, so if you want to play ADP that way, I think that's more than viable. It's McMillan or a tight end for me.
I'm gonna go with Dallas Goedert. He had his career high in touchdowns last year with 11. Granted, a lot of them were shovel passes at the goal line. It still worked out with AJ Brown leaving. He's the biggest body on the offense now. That's going to be starting at least for a while, and that's going to have some serious, at least early season stuff. So yes, what does our friend Bindles mean with this omnivore comment?
Well, my co-host PPR Tyler had a stream this morning, doing a little NPR morning streams, and while he is very good at what he does, he's very good on camera. No one's ever accused him of being the sharpest tool in the shed or the brightest bulb in the barn, and so he might not have known what the word omnivore was, nor how to pronounce omniscient. And so, in our little neck of the woods, we like bits, we like jokes. So we're allowed to joke that, so everybody's getting asked, do you know what an omnivore is? Because of course you know.
Yes, I know for sure. I'm an herbivore. I'm a vegan. I don't eat. All I eat is plants and a lot of processed foods. But yes, an omnivore. You eat plants. You eat animals. I mean, it's 6th grade science. Isn't he a teacher as well?
That is part of why it's funny. Has anyone ever asked you, is that why you piss so much? Is that why you like zero RBs? Because you're just filled up on water, fat, plants, and no meat?
Yeah, I mean, I do piss a lot in real life as well.
There you go.
Yes, I pee a lot in real life. It's
why
a lot of liquid, a lot of plants. So
you're saying you're not beating the soy boy liberal allegations of zero running back bros. That's what I'm hearing.
Buddy, I am far from a liberal. I have a big old I denounce those. Liberals are too close to the center for me. I am very, very, very far left. There's a huge old C. I wish there could be a huge old C next to what I could register vote as.
So is your favorite team the Commies? You're a big Commies fan?
No, I'm an Eagles fan. America first, of course. I mean conservative, not communist. Before our next pick, I'm gonna go ahead and recap our team. At quarterback, we have Caleb Williams and Tyler Shuck. Running back, we are sitting at Ashton Jeanty, De'Von Achane, and DeAndre Swift. Wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, Luther Burden, Jordan Addison, Ricky Pearsall, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper. And at tight end, we have Dallas Goedert. I'm feeling confident about our team right now where we're looking. We definitely need to add another quarterback. Tight end is another priority. Wide receiver, I feel fine at right now. What are you thinking for picks 13 and 14?
I think quarterback's probably not anything we need to worry about. Strange and Henry feel more than fine targets at tight end if we want to add a second here. There's a lot of viable guys late. I think this is a decent spot to take potentially our 4th running back if there's anybody that we like. Otherwise,
I'm gonna go ahead
Henry's
and
a good
put
placeholder.
Henry in the queue.
Yeah.
Let's look at wide receiver running backs. I mean, I use leg up rankings by rankings. Singleton, Sampson, Spears, Connor. By ADP, we have Connor, Emmanuel Wilson, Emmett Johnson, Isaiah Pacheco. None of these names really tickle anything in me.
Well, let's grab another
Um,
receiver then. Do we want to go Slappy with Hunter, or do we want to get the following vet in Diggs?
um, I think honestly Hunter might be safer as far as like our later receivers go. I know it's strange to say considering he is a cornerback, but Casey Concepcion, Ricky Pearsall, and Omar Cooper, while those are fun names, they might not necessarily be giving us something right away. I like Ricky, but I still don't know how I feel about him. Travis Hunter could have several moments in our flex position with Wilson Burden and Addison as our receivers.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, late season, we know anything can happen. So he's one injury away from, getting a more than rotational role. Uh, and ultimately, at this price, it's not going to kill you, and it certainly could be what you need any given week in the playoffs. I think we've caught up sufficiently at receiver to satisfy your herbivore piss desires deep down in your bollocks.
Yeah.
I think Mendoza would have been an interesting quarterback name to talk about, unstacked for the back half of the season. But at this point, taking a shot on an Atlanta guy or my preferred option, Aaron Rodgers, backstacking with a Pat Fryermuth at minimum is a nice little fun thing we can do late to give ourselves that third quarterback and third tight end little correlation late. I think this pocket will be one we can hammer running backs at. I'm tempted to pull up guys like Brian Robinson, who I think belong in this RB2 range. So I would have been comfortable pulling him up. I think he's poorly priced there. But maybe he's available to us on the turn.
All right. I mean, that sounds completely cool to me. I'm gonna bring up Brett's comment real quick. Um, I'm vegan and I'm straight edge, so happy 420 to everyone that celebrates tomorrow, but I will not be partaking.
And my employers may be watching, so neither will I. Nah. What do you do in your spare time when you're not drafting, Nick?
Dude, working. I work like almost right now. Since I coach during the spring, I'm probably working close to 55 hours a week.
What do you coach?
Yeah, girls lacrosse at my middle school that I work at.
That's right. Putting sticks in the hands of women. That's an ally.
Tyler, they're 13.
Weapons sticks, not sexual sticks. Get your mind out of the gutter. We're arming the youth of America to defend themselves, and that's what we do, and that's why we do it.
Hey, I have some dogs on my team.
Yeah, goddamn right, Nick.
Yeah. I one of them actually got in trouble last year during a game for barking at an opposing player.
Hell yeah.
And some of them bark at each other in practice, but I told them we're not allowed to do it in games anymore. So
they got that spirit. You got to let them eat them up.
Yeah. Other than that, man, I eat a lot of Taco Bell. I eat a lot of Chipotle. I mean, I'm like, every other vegan straight edge guy who listens to hardcore and punk music.
What's your new favorite punk and hardcore you're listening to these days?
There's a hardcore band that I found recently called Division of Mind. I think they're actually from Ohio, speaking of Ohio earlier. They're pretty good. I'm a big fan.
Let's put Bigsby in the queue.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Hit the RB tab for me.
None of these names, like, I'd rather take a shot on a rookie like Singleton or Allen. I'm
gonna make you take Vidal. I think he belongs to go here, and I think we need him if we only end up 5.
Okay. You think we'll only end up with 5?
I'm gonna diversify for you. Your side piece is talking, and it's telling you to diversify.
Hey, I'm telling. I have some of it all. Before they signed Keaton Mitchell, I had a lot of it all. He may have been my highest drafted running back at one point before the Mitchell signing.
You scared, boy?
Keaton Mitchell's good, man. Angel Dust is another one that I've been listening to recently. Big fans of them. What End It is really big on with me right now. The new Turnstile album, big fan of. What about you? What have you been listening to?
New stuff. Oh shit. Dial Drive for a little like
Hmm.
thrash skate throwback stuff. What else have I? Let's see. Take a look. Avoid. Loving me some Avoid.
Nice. Yeah,
That
one of my coworkers, he started a post-hardcore band, and he's been asking me to come to a show for a while, and I finally had time Friday afternoon, and I went. It was the first time I hardcore danced slash moshed in probably 7 or 8 years, and my shoulder is still feeling it. Every
you
single
gotta
breakdown, it took everything in me not to just like start like crowd killing people.
you gotta get back in the gym. Sounds like you're out of shape, buddy.
I mean, it's the soy boy, man. It's the soy boy.
Let's see.
Um,
The new Bill Murray is a little country twang for me. A
hmm
little bit of Koyo for some of that more like
Yeah.
hardcore all. Let's see what else we got. Been listening to some Russian emo. I have no idea what they sing about, but it sounds sad and I like it. Let's
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Era's always good. Um uh I got to meet JT Avera a while back. He was fun. He fed me a
Hmm.
Cheeto puff in the pool on 4th of July. It
Fun.
was fun.
Military Gun is another band that I've been listening to a lot recently. Have you listened to them?
I have not, no.
They are a great band. They're really good. They mix a lot of like old school aspects of punk and modernize it. It to me also it reminds me a lot of like early 2000s, like a heavier like Newfound Glory or something like that, or Sum
Mm,
41, in the same vein as
mm.
them.
Gotcha.
All right, we got 4 picks left. We're sitting at a 2-5-7-2 build. I think we're fine. I think this is a choose your own adventure right now. You mentioned one of the Atlanta guys or Aaron Rodgers, and I believe your boy went. I don't see him. Yep, he
Yep.
went in the 16th round. So it looks like we're stuck with one of the Atlanta guys. I don't have a preference. It's a coin flip to me. I have drafted both of them. Um, we don't have to take one now. We can take one later. But what are you feeling?
Yeah, queue up a tight end. Let's just grab Helm or Ninjoku. I don't really care.
I'll take Helm. This tight
I had
end's
a,
barely going to be
I had a
touching our
feeling.
lineup.
I had a feeling. Just take Tua. There's a chance Penix is slow to return. He might not come back till post week 4. And at that point, if they're operating well enough in a Stefanski offense, he
Hmm.
might just not get to go. I'm strongly considering that both guys end up getting shots this season. It's anybody's guess who ends late. So I'm willing to bet on who starts off first and maybe just doesn't give it back. Um,
Yeah.
Not that I have that much confidence Tua can do that, but this is a dome and it is a pretty quarterback friendly scheme with a pretty good wide receiver and quarterback. Tua's done well enough just feeding the main guys, and and if he's going to have to play a lot, and he plays in the NFC South, so the Saints, both those games are in domes.
Hmm.
Carolina's outside, but otherwise, like it's kind of it's not that tough of a division. It's not a ton of outside stuff. That's fair. I think that's a compliment, KY. So
Yeah.
ultimately, I think I'm willing to just not take the guy that's coming off an injury, who I don't know if he's that good to begin with, and certainly isn't. This is not this regime's quarterback pick.
Right.
So fuck it.
Um, One thing that's interesting that will be coming around for us, I typed up some notes earlier for the receivers we were talking about, and Germie Bernard, who already went, as well as Zachariah Branch, they both did top 30 visits for the Falcons. When it comes back to us, I would not be against taking Zachariah Branch. He went to Georgia. Potential landing spot in the second round for them. He would, teams don't get that many top 30 visits. So that is an important thing to note.
A lot of them have seemingly been used on guys that didn't attend the combine for medicals and interviews, though, is what the pattern lately has been. Like some of these no-name running backs getting top 30 visits, but it's because they didn't attend the combine. So I don't know if Branch attended the combine or not.
I'm not sure. I can look it up real quick.
Okay, he did go to the combine.
He went to the combine. So I mean, we don't, like I said, we don't have to take him, but it's something to keep in mind. A lot of teams only bring in players on top 10. You had
5'8", 177. Yeah, I mean, what if this is the Malik Washington for the Atlanta Falcons? Wow, you just got to scoop that up.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? I'm just saying potential stacking partner for Tua, but I'm down for anywhere right now. I'm fine with 2 receivers, a running back and receiver. That's where my mind is right now.
I like Flournoy. I don't think Bell is a good year 1 click. Branch, if you're really horny for that, that's fine. Vele is, does stack with Shuck. We didn't get Jauan.
We can do Vele for Shuck.
Yeah, you said 1 running back, 1 receiver?
Or 1 running back, 1 receiver, or 2 receivers. I'm fine with either one. I'm going to take Vele, let the time fall out for that one.
Yeah, just add Flournoy. Say fuck it. Let's take a wide receiver 3 on the Cowboys has been a pretty good click year after year for random spikes. If Pickens holds out, if his conditioning's kind of poor, something we've seen previously, he was able to earn 10 targets in a game. It's a good offense. He's elite RAS athlete coming into his year 3 or 4 seasons. So this could be a Jauan Jennings light type of breakout if things break right. And we've seen both Pickens and Lamb miss time for various reasons, some of those including effort. He's been a fun click late.
Yeah. So we just wrapped up our draft. Quarterback, Caleb Williams, Tyre Shock, Tua. Running back, Genty, Achane, Swift, Bigsby, Vidal. Wide receiver, we have Garrett Wilson, Luther Burden, Jordan Addison, Ricky Pearsall, Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., Travis Hunter, Devon Vele, Ryan Flournoy, and tight end, we wrapped it up with Goddard, Henry, Helm. Tyler, do you have anything closing that you'd like to say?
Support small streamers like you support small businesses. Give Nick all the love and support and belly kisses you can in his comment section. Tell him what you like. Tell him what you didn't. Nick, don't take harsh comments too harshly. Don't take good comments too goodly. And all in all, welcome to the streaming space. You have a lot to learn, young buck. Here to help out as you want. But this was fun. Thanks for having me on, buddy. I did enjoy the slides. And those are a fun addition to kind of like, get into things, but also come back to or wrap up with, or hey, something comes up, you bring it back to it. So, the slides, I like it. Very ship chasing of you. So solid work there, buddy. And looking forward to seeing you continue to get your sea legs.
Yeah, of course, man. I think it's less ship chasing of me and more teacher of me.
Sure.
Just because it's just how I'm programmed. But thank you so much for stopping by on a Sunday evening. I know you said you had a long afternoon, so I do appreciate you stopping by. Like Bindle said in the chat earlier, like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. And everyone have a good week.